The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a pale orange glow over the cracked pavement of the driveway as I pulled into the small house in Willow Creek, Tennessee, a quiet town 60 miles east of Nashville. I, Mia Carter, had just turned 32, and the weight of the day hung heavy on my shoulders. The air carried the sharp bite of early fall, sneaking under my jacket collar as I reached across the passenger seat of my beat-up Honda for a small cake box, the only thing I'd splurged on for myself today. It cost $15, a simple chocolate cake with "Happy Birthday" scrawled in messy blue icing, a detail I hadn't bothered to correct at the bakery counter, too tired to care after a long shift at the accounting firm where I worked. I stepped out, the gravel crunching under my boots, expecting nothing from the evening. No party, no card, just another quiet night in a house that had long since stopped feeling like a home. Inside, the air was thick with a sterile silence, heavier than usual, the kind that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. The kitchen lights buzzed overhead, casting a harsh, yellow glow over the worn linoleum floor. Dinner was already on the table: canned corn, a dry pork chop, and instant mashed potatoes, the kind of meal my parents, Frank and Evelyn, threw together without thought. I hadn't even taken off my coat when Frank's voice barked from the head of the table, sharp and cold. "You're late." I set the cake down on the counter, the plastic bag crinkling louder than I meant it to. "Worked late, had to finish some reports," I said, my voice flat, no apology in it. Evelyn didn't look up, her fork scraping against her plate, her silence a familiar weight. Frank grunted, pouring another inch of bourbon into his chipped glass, the amber liquid catching the light. Dinner began in a mechanical rhythm, knives scraping, glasses clinking, the occasional cough breaking the tension that spiderwebbed across the room. No happy birthday, no acknowledgement of the day, just the sound of chewing and swallowing, a ritual devoid of warmth. I pushed a sad clump of potatoes around my plate, the fork heavy in my hand, the silence pressing down like a physical thing. I should have known something was coming. Frank was never one to hold back for long. Halfway through his meal, he slammed his fork down, the sound jolting Evelyn in her seat, her eyes darting up for a fleeting second. "You're too old to be freeloading," he said, his voice cold, rehearsed, cutting through the air like a blade. "It's time you left." The words hung there, unreal, as I blinked at him, then at Evelyn, searching for a contradiction, a flicker of regret. She kept her eyes down, her lips pressed into a thin, bloodless line. "I pay the internet bill," I said, my voice steady, facts spilling out like a shield. "The electricity, half the mortgage, groceries. I've been keeping this house afloat." Frank laughed, a harsh bark that felt like a slap. "Paying a few bills doesn't buy you a lifetime stay, sweetheart," he sneered, twisting the nickname he'd once used when I was a little girl into something cruel. This wasn't a drunken rant. It was planned, deliberate. A decision they'd waited for my birthday to deliver, turning a day of celebration into a deadline. I pushed my plate away, the pork chop untouched, the cake on the counter a bitter irony, and stood, their eyes following me, expecting tears, a plea. Instead, I nodded, sharp and final. "Got it," I said, and turned toward the stairs, leaving the weight of their betrayal behind me. But not for long. The cracked wooden stairs creaked under my weight as I climbed to my room in the small house in Willow Creek, Tennessee. The echo of Frank's words, "You're too old to be freeloading," ringing in my ears. I, Mia Carter, had just turned 32, and my birthday had become the day my parents, Frank and Evelyn, decided to cast me out, despite the years I'd spent keeping their world together. I'd paid their internet, electricity, half the mortgage, and groceries, thousands of dollars over the years to cover their debts and keep the lights on. Yet, in their eyes, I was disposable, a freeloader who'd overstayed her welcome. I closed my bedroom door behind me, the hollow thud mirroring the ache in my chest, and leaned against it, the silence wrapping around me like a second skin. The room was a time capsule of my life, faded posters on the walls, a cracked mirror above the dresser, and a bed with a sagging mattress I'd slept on since high school. On the nightstand sat the small cake I'd bought myself, the blue icing smudged through the plastic window, a single candle missing from the box, a quiet symbol of what was missing in this house: love, family, belonging. I pushed the cake off the nightstand, watching it fall with a soft thud, the cardboard crumpling, the frosting smearing on the worn carpet. "Happy birthday, Mia," I muttered, the words bitter on my tongue. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the half-packed suitcase I'd been too afraid to finish over the past weeks. A part of me always knowing this day would come. My hands moved on autopilot, peeling off my jacket and folding it over the suitcase, the motions mechanical, steady, not because I wasn't hurt, but because I was done. Done begging for a place in a family that had never truly wanted me. My mind clicked into gear, running through logistics like a checklist. Cancel autopay for the utilities. Transfer my money out of the joint account Evelyn had insisted on for emergencies. Find a storage unit until I could sort out the rest. They weren't just kicking me out. They were forfeiting everything I'd given them, every sacrifice I'd made, without asking for a thank you. I pulled my laptop from under the bed, the screen casting a sterile glow across the dim room, and got to work. First, the electricity bill. I'd been the primary account holder since Frank forgot to pay one winter, leaving us without heat for 3 days. I logged in, my password a muscle memory, and navigated to the payment section, my finger hovering over the Remove Payment Method button before clicking with a grim satisfaction. Next came the water bill, then the gas, the internet, the cable. Services they used without a second thought, never realizing my name was on the accounts, my paychecks funding their Netflix binges and late-night scrolling. I canceled each one, severing the invisible cords that had tethered me to this house. The joint bank account was last, the one Evelyn had insisted on for emergencies, but always used for her own convenience. I transferred my remaining $2,500 into a private account I'd set up months ago, a precaution I'd ignored until now. Each click was a reclamation, a small act of power they'd never seen coming. I closed the laptop with a soft snap, the silence in the room lighter now, sharper, as if the air itself knew something had shifted. Downstairs, the TV blared, Frank and Evelyn oblivious to the storm I'd just unleashed. But how long would their ignorance last? The pale morning light filtered through the thin curtains of my friend's apartment in Willow Creek, Tennessee, a small space 10 miles from the house I'd once called home. It had been 3 days since I, Mia Carter, walked away from my parents, Frank and Evelyn, on my 32nd birthday, after they'd coldly evicted me, despite the years I'd spent paying their bills. Electricity, internet, half the mortgage, groceries, over $10,000 in total to keep their lives afloat. Their words, "You're too old to be freeloading," had cut deep, but I'd fought back, canceling every service I'd funded, severing every financial tie, and leaving them to face the consequences of their betrayal. Now, as I sat on the edge of the couch in my friend Sarah's living room, my phone buzzed relentlessly against the coffee table, the screen lighting up with 15 missed calls. Frank, Evelyn, neighbors, distant relatives, all piling on the pressure. I didn't listen to the voicemails at first, my stomach twisting as I stared at the list, a flicker of guilt threatening to surface. But a text from my cousin Jake stopped me cold. "Mom's faking chest pains next if guilt tripping doesn't work." I sank deeper into the couch, the words knocking the air from my lungs. So that was their plan. Not regret, not reconciliation, but manipulation. Another attempt to pull me back into their web. Sarah shuffled into the room, her nurse scrubs wrinkled from a long shift, and handed me a mug of coffee, her voice steady. "You okay?" she asked, sitting cross-legged on the floor. I nodded, the guilt replaced by a cold clarity. "They're panicking," I said, my voice flat. Sarah's eyes softened, but her tone was firm. "Good. Sometimes saving yourself isn't betrayal, it's survival." The voicemails painted a different picture. Evelyn's voice trembled in the first one, her tone syrupy with false concern. "Mia, honey, there must be some mistake. You wouldn't leave us like this. Please call me. We can fix this. We're family." I scoffed, the word family a bitter irony after they'd discarded me. Frank's message was next, his voice slurred with bourbon and rage. "You'll regret turning your back on us," he growled, the threat clear. Then came the calls from relatives, Aunt Clara, Uncle Tom, each one piling on the guilt. "Your dad's heart isn't strong," Clara's voicemail said. "This could kill your mom," Tom texted. Each message chipped away at my resolve. Memories of childhood laughter and shared holidays flashing through my mind, clashing with the reality of their betrayal. By noon, the storm had escalated. A message from an old coworker, Lisa, pulled me out of my thoughts. "Have you seen what your dad posted?" I opened the link, my heart sinking as I saw Frank's words on the local Facebook group. "Some daughters are raised to be grateful. Ours turned her back on us, left us sick and starving. Pray for us." The post had 200 comments, some offering sympathy, others hurling venom. "Ungrateful child. She'll regret this." The guilt surged, sharp and cutting. But Sarah's voice broke through. "They're rewriting your story," she said, her tone fierce. "Are you going to let them?" Her words struck a chord, igniting a fire I'd buried under years of sacrifice. How far would this go before I fought back? The small apartment in Willow Creek, Tennessee, felt like a fortress as I, Mia Carter, sat at the dining table, my laptop open, the faint smell of rain and coffee lingering in the air. It had been a week since I'd walked away from my parents, Frank and Evelyn, on my 32nd birthday, after they'd evicted me despite the $10,000 I'd spent over the years paying their bills. Electricity, internet, half the mortgage, groceries. Their betrayal had cut deep, but their public smear campaign on the local Facebook group, "Our daughter left us sick and starving," had pushed me to the edge. Over 300 comments had piled up, neighbors and strangers alike branding me as ungrateful, a villain, while Frank played the victim. But I wasn't the girl who'd quietly take their abuse anymore. I was done letting them write my story. I spent the morning organizing my evidence, a folder I'd kept over the years as a quiet insurance policy. Receipts, bank statements, emails, screenshots proving every dollar I'd funneled into their house, electricity bills in my name, mortgage payments from my account, repairs I'd funded with overtime shifts. Each document was a memory of sacrifice, a reminder of the years I'd spent holding their world together while they tore mine apart. By noon, I'd built a fortress of truth, a timeline of my contributions laid bare. I opened the local Facebook group, my fingers steady as I uploaded the thread. Not emotional, not angry, just clinical. Screenshots of utility payments, dated clearly, showing my name as the account holder. Bank statements highlighting mortgage payments, even when Frank's paycheck could have covered them. Emails to the landlord confirming I'd funded a $2,000 roof repair during a brutal winter. At the end, a simple statement. When they asked me to leave, they didn't just lose a daughter. They lost the person who kept the lights on when they weren't looking. For a moment, there was silence. The faint hum of Sarah Globetrotter Sarah's fridge, the only sound in the room. Then the notifications started. Likes, comments, shares, pouring in like a flood. I always wondered why she stayed so long, a neighbor wrote. She paid for everything. How dare they, another added. The post spread like wildfire. 500 shares in hours. Neighbors, former teachers, even distant cousins chiming in. The tide turning as the truth cut through Frank and Evelyn's lies. They used her, one comment read. She deserves better. I leaned back, a weight lifting from my chest. The shame they tried to pin on me dissolving in the face of undeniable truth. But how would they face the town now? The morning sun filtered through the window of my new apartment in Nashville, Tennessee. A small but cozy space 60 miles from Willow Creek, where I, Mia Carter, had started over at 32 after walking away from my toxic parents, Frank and Evelyn. It had been a month since I'd exposed their betrayal on the local Facebook group, revealing the $10,000 I'd spent over the years on their bills. Electricity, internet, mortgage, groceries, only to be evicted on my birthday with the cold label of freeloader. The truth had turned the town against them, their lies crumbling as neighbors and friends saw the receipts, the bank statements, the proof of my sacrifices. Now, as I unpacked the last box in my new space, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years, a quiet strength that came from choosing myself over their manipulation. Back in Willow Creek, Frank and Evelyn had become pariahs, their victim narrative shattered. Neighbors stopped inviting them to community events. Their house, a place I'd once kept afloat, sat dark. The utilities I'd canceled never reinstated, a physical reminder of their loss. I'd heard through Sarah that Frank had taken to drinking more. His rants at the local bar met with cold shoulders, while Evelyn had retreated into silence, her social circle gone. They'd tried to call a few more times, their numbers now blocked, their voicemails deleted unheard. I didn't need their guilt trips or their lies. I'd found my freedom, and I wasn't going back. In Nashville, I'd landed a job at a small accounting firm, my skills quickly earning me respect. My story, a quiet inspiration to colleagues who'd heard whispers of my past. I'd started therapy, unpacking the years of emotional neglect, learning to rebuild my sense of self-worth. The sapphire ring I'd once worn as a reminder of their betrayal now sat in a drawer, a symbol of the past I'd left behind. I'd begun to build a new family. Sarah, my rock through it all, and new friends who valued me for me, not what I could give. As I hung a photo of Sarah and me at the Autumn Festival on my wall, I smiled, the weight of Willow Creek gone. Sometimes leaving isn't failure, it's finding yourself. Have you ever had to walk away to find your worth? Share your story in the comments and subscribe for more tales of resilience that prove the greatest strength is in letting go. Next week, we're diving into another story of triumph. Don't miss it.